A big problem I hear about from a lot of highly sensitive people is that they are emotional sponges. They're soaking up and they're taking on the emotions of other people almost as if it's their own. The emotion and energy of other people just seems to stick to them. So without knowing it, you've grown these emotional ties to people without consciously knowing that they've been unconsciously stealing your energy. Some people refer to these entities as energy vampires, but you can also understand them as leeches that are slowly drawing out your energy. It's like you've become their ecosystem. You've become their host. Even when they're gone, their energy is still attached to you. And I think as a highly sensitive person, this is just one of those things that are bound to happen. You might hear yourself saying people mistake your kindness for a weakness. And it kind of is a weakness because you don't have boundaries in place to deal with those kind of people. That's also part of the curse that people talk about. And the reason why many empaths are going to say, how can I get rid of this? How can I turn this off? And it's not easy. Part of being a sensitive person means that you tap into the energy of all things. And what we do as empathic people is we try to transmute it all. We see it as our responsibility to take it on so we can be the ones to heal it, make it better. But over time, that's causing damage to our sensitive systems. And then we become the ones who are emitting that negative and heavy energy. So we got to learn the way to shift energy and transmute it is not to fix it or take it on, but rather to learn how to hold a higher vibration than what we sense outside of us that indirectly transmutes the negativity in the world so that we can live amongst it. But what is required for us to do that is really hard and may require us to live in such a way that seems extreme and beyond what even a normal introverted lifestyle might look like. It requires a lot of inner work, the ability to hold your own power, your own inner authority, so you can have really strong personal boundaries. So in this video, I'm going to outline what it looks like, feels like to be in your own energy versus being in someone else's energy. So you're going to have a really good understanding of the difference. Then I'll discuss if it's even possible to be in your own energy all the time. And what gets in the way of that is your ability to have some really important boundaries. So we'll talk about what those boundaries are that are going to help you to stay in your power instead of giving it away all the time. And just to clarify, when we're talking about energy, energy is a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a currency, it's a vibration. There's energy in people's thoughts, in their words, in their emotions. And yes, there's energy in everything, right down to this earth that we live on, the trees, the flowers, the animals, everything is energy. And everything is calibrated differently on a certain level. Like the vibrational energy of shame is calibrated on a much lower level than courage. To be in the energy of guilt is going to feel much different than to be in the energy of gratitude. Let's get into looking at how you're going to know when you've taken on energy that isn't yours. For highly sensitive people, you're doing this all the time. You might not be in your own energy at all. So as I'm going through this list, notice how many of these things you can say yes to in the last week or even in the last 48 hours. Have you been feeling drained, overwhelmed, and disconnected from your own needs, from your own body, from your own feelings? How often do you notice that you're in your head? How much of the day is spent replaying someone else's conversation, their words, trying to analyze what they said and trying to make sense of it? Like, if I'm feeling anxious about releasing this video, whose energy is that? Is it because I'm in my head wondering what people will think about it? Am I in the energy of a past comment that disagreed with my last video? Things like people's words, no matter how distant in the past, can still linger and become an energy vampire, holding you back from speaking your authentic truth. The other one is, how often are you being slimed? And this sliming happens when someone comes in, totally disrespects your boundaries. Maybe you don't have any boundaries about this to begin with. And they just completely offload their whole day onto you. They slime you with all their negative energy, gossip, bad news, complaining, criticizing, giving you all their victim mentality, and you allow it. You allow it, thinking there's nothing wrong with that. You're here for it. You can also be slimed by listening to the news or other content that has similar low energy. Also, pay attention to how often you experience dramatic shifts in your mood without an obvious cause. Suddenly, just feeling anxious, angry, or sad without knowing why. If you've ever just erupted in rage, this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back after you've been slimed enough times without noticing it. Or you did notice it and you didn't do anything about it. It's like you want that energy that's not yours to leave, to get out, so you can return back to your natural state of calm. Crying for no reason is another form of release. And sure, you can feel a bit better afterwards, but if you don't know where it's coming from, it can be hard to feel settled afterwards. And that anger can also be a sign that you needed to set a boundary for yourself. Feeling anxious is always a trusted sign for me that something's out of alignment with my own truth. So determine where this anxiety is coming from. Have you compromised yourself in some way? Have you abandoned your own needs? Or has someone else compromised you or abandoned you? And you've allowed that to steal your energy. Just noticing how often you feel anxious alone is a key indicator of not being grounded, not being in your own energy. Anxiousness is often rooted in fear, and that fear might be from an inability to trust yourself or trust in someone else. But without trust in yourself, that leaves you feeling unsafe, ungrounded, living in a state of fear and feeling anxious instead of just trusting that you're going to be okay, you're safe. Whatever comes up, you're going to be able to handle it. Which brings us to another way you're going to know when you're not in your energy is when you're neglecting your grounding or self-centering practices. And you might not even have an understanding of what grounding and centering yourself even means. So you keep your energy open all day, or you numb yourself. This is what having porous or weak boundaries is about. Having weak expectations for the people in your life, allowing yourself to be an open portal for anyone to enter. Another one is avoiding stillness and self-reflection. And not only avoiding stillness, but avoiding yourself. And instead you stay busy, on the go. Or you are reflecting, but not on yourself. You're reflecting on other people. So you're still in their energy, you're not in your own. You never give yourself a chance to check in with yourself. You're always allowing the voices and actions of other people to live rent-free in your head. And this might turn into emotional dependency on others. Because once you start to take on someone else's desires, someone else's needs, someone else's pain as your own, you become enmeshed in them. And again, not being autonomous in your own energy. This is where that people-pleasing, caretaking, and overgiving shows up. How often do you absorb other people's emotions and feel like you're responsible for them and that you have to fix them, mostly so you can feel better, or because you think it'll help them feel better? How often are you catching yourself in this people-pleasing, this being overly accommodating to other people's needs to the detriment of your own? This can also include masking, putting on a performance, mimicking other people's behavior, and matching their energy. This blending in with people all the time is going to result in you blending into an energy that isn't yours. And that results in energetic hangovers. You feel exhausted after socializing because you've been wearing a mask of someone else the whole time. You might even feel energetic hangovers after scrolling on social media for too long. Because again, you've been consumed by the energy of other people's lives and activities, which disconnects you from your own. This also includes watching a movie, being overly consumed by the characters in the movie, to the point where you might even take on that person's behavior or accent. You might find yourself as if you are that character in the movie for a while, which takes you away from who you are. And depending what that is, sure, we all like a good escape once in a while, time to live in a fantasy world of being someone else. But remember, this is you stepping outside of your own energy and into someone else's. What happens when you have to come back to yourself? Even being in certain environments can steal your energy, no matter how great your life is going. Just being in certain places can have a detrimental effect on your ability to feel safe and grounded. Sometimes you might be picking up an energy in your own home from someone who used to live there before, or a time in history that your neighborhood once used to be a part of. And of course, living in a country with political unrest can be destabilizing for someone who is highly sensitive. Remember, many highly sensitive people have this higher level awareness of energy. And that can be very difficult to understand for some people. They might be completely unaware that they have that capacity, so they dismiss it. And so dismissing that is dismissing a part of you. The last thing I'll mention here is feeling physically tense, especially in the shoulders and the neck, like you've been carrying around another person's problems. All the weight is on you versus the relief you feel when someone leaves and takes their energy with them. There can be this immediate shift you feel. But if you allow your energy to stay attached to them, replaying the things they said or did, then the tension sticks around. This bodily discomfort isn't just tightness in your muscles, it's also digestive issues, chest tightness, heart palpitations, and just general bodily fatigue. And this one can linger for a long time. You might have some other related autoimmune responses that are to blame. And as we know, autoimmune responses are created from inflammation in the body. So you can imagine how inflamed one would be having to carry around an energy that wasn't their own, in addition to your own suppressed feelings that are not being heard, that are not being tended to. There's quite a lot of inner conflict going on in the body, which is why it's so tense and sore all the time. It's like it's trying to respond in its own way to flush out the toxins, but without your conscious effort, they just stay trapped. And over time, some people's bodies are just rock hard with other people's problems they've been carrying around. Many times I've started a coaching journey with someone who's struggling with boundaries, having a hard time staying grounded. And they tell me that one of the things they imagined feeling once they've learned some new tools is feeling lighter. Essentially, what that means is they've cleared up their energy. They've gotten rid of what was no longer serving them. All those thoughts and judgments of other people that they've been building and accumulating over the years finally been replaced with their own loving thoughts. Aside from feeling a sense of lightness in your body, notice these other signs of how often you're actually in your own energy. For instance, how often do your thoughts feel calm? How often do you have clarity? Because when you are in your own energy, it's much easier to make decisions. You're not so anxious because you trust yourself. You know that even if you mess up, you'll be okay. This is also a sign that you're connected to your inner voice, your intuition. You automatically know what needs to be done without second guessing yourself. When you're in your own energy, you feel like you can glide through life effortlessly. There's much less resistance and way more flow. So how often do you actually feel centered, grounded, and rooted in your body? And you'll know because you can feel a whole range of emotions without feeling overwhelmed by them because they're yours and you know how to respond to what you need versus feeling tense and overwhelmed about how to respond to someone else's needs. Your mood is still very expansive, but it feels stable. You can handle it. You're not riding on someone else's emotional roller coaster. It's next to impossible to direct someone else's unstable energy, but when you're in your own, it's much easier to control and be responsible for. Now, how about your presence? How are you showing up when you're in your own energy? Well, your voice is your voice. You stand tall, you stand confidently, you're aware of yourself, you're aware of how your choices align with who you are. There is no doubt because they resonate with your own morals and values. You know what you believe in, and more importantly, you're not afraid to be judged for your own beliefs. You're operating from your highest authentic sense of self. Instead of that codependent people-pleasing energy that was feeding off the insecurity of other people and leading you to feel insecure about yourself. So no more of that. You're in your own power. You're operating from your own inner authority. You feel as if you are leading your day instead of just reaction after reaction. When you say yes, it feels real. When you say no, it feels clean. You are respecting your own choices. You understand where your own choices are being directed from, your own truth, and not from someone else's. So there's less internal conflict. So by now, you're getting a feel for how much you're in your energy versus how much you're not. And is it even possible to be fully in your own energy as a highly sensitive person? Yes and no. And that's okay. Think of it like this: your energy is your home. You can't always stop people from knocking on your door, but you can decide who you let in and how long they stay and what kind of mess they leave behind. Now, here's the thing: you let someone in, it's okay for a while, then you start picking up their stuff, whether it's good or not so good. If they leave and you feel an immediate shift in your own energy, lighter, clearer, calmer, then you know it was their energy you were picking up and not your own. If they leave and you feel ungrounded, disoriented, unclear, shaken, then there's something lingering. Is it yours? Why is it still here? Have you taken on something that isn't yours? Or are you the one leaking the negative energy? Are you trapped in someone else's thoughts and feelings? Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe they reminded you of someone who conjured up negative memories or associations. Maybe it was just something that they said that brought you to an uncomfortable time in your life. The goal is to be mindful of these two things. The first one I like to refer as 2D because it's 2Ds: discernment and detection. Having the ability to know, detect when you've gone out of alignment with yourself. And if you think about 2D as two-dimensional, a two-dimensional realm is a very low realm. There's not a lot going on with it. So notice when you have detected yourself stooping down to the second dimension, because you belong in much higher dimensional frequencies than that. The longer you stay down there in that undetected state, the worse off you're going to be. So you discern. Is this mine? Is this not mine? And then you detect where it's coming from. Having that ability is number one. Then what I call the 3 R's: reflect, recover, and return. After detection is then tapping into your own skills and abilities to reflect it back. And you reflect it back with compassion. Then you recover using your grounding techniques. Maybe you might be familiar with the 3 R's to recycling. This is no different. Reduce, reuse, recycle. But I think here is more like composting. You've got leftover scraps that can't be ingested or digested. And in this case, it's scraps of energy that are not yours. And even if you have ingested it, it's going to be really hard to digest. So how do we get rid of these things? We got to return it back to the earth. We got to reground so something cleaner can be generated. You know, even nuclear power plants, the way they dispose of their nuclear energy has to be done very carefully. So treat this as a process that must be done with clear intention and focus. The truth is that you'll always be affected by the world in some way, but you can get faster at recognizing when you've absorbed something, which helps you to build a sort of energetic muscle memory so you can get to this recalibration process much quicker. First, have the discernment. Where is this coming from? Be able to detect what it is, then move into the 3 R's. Without these tools, you just go into those signs of being in someone else's energy and you stay there indefinitely. But here's the thing: even with the tools, you're constantly going in and out and in and out. There's always this transition of being in one energy, coming back to your own. That can get exhausting. So it's worth it to stay consistent with this practice, kind of like a catch and release exercise. But normalize the practice is going to take a lot of effort on your part. I know you're already using energy, so now start to use your energy in a more positively directed way. And be very intentional about this practice, because it's not just about the energy from other people that you keep absorbing. It's also the labor that's involved in having to return to yourself that can become draining. So this just comes back to building a practice of coming back to yourself with more ease and flow. And over time, you just develop a switch that turns on your protective energy shield, so to speak, so you can stay in your own energy until it gets easier, until you've built that muscle. So since you can't always be in your own energy, you can start to notice how often you spend in those signs that I mentioned, being in your own energy versus not. And maybe you notice that, you're in other people's energy 80% of the time. And so you only feel relief 20% of the time. And that relief is when you're grounded in your own truth. So 80% of the time, you're cut off from yourself. This is why you have to have really strong boundaries in place. For some of us, it means not having so many interactions with the world so you can stay more easily in your own power. And I know that sounds like a very drastic and dramatic and overly rigid way to be in the world. But the truth is that many people naturally come to this place of spending more and more time alone, which, by the way, naturally happens as you get older. But this seems to be even more than that for highly sensitive people, because it's to the point where either you're going to wonder, how long is this going to go on before I can feel more like myself, versus coming to the point of accepting that this amount of alone time is actually how I feel best. So yeah, these boundaries aren't just helpful to have, they're essential. But, even with the best energetic boundaries in place, you're still someone who's extra sensitive to the emotions, spoken or unspoken, in other people. You're very aware of the smallest nuances in people's behaviors and actions, or even non-actions. And personally, like, I don't want to always be in the process of reflecting people's junk back to them or back to the universe, and then having to recalibrate myself and feeling grounded again. You can't always be in this hyper vigilant way of living. I mean, you can, but you don't want to. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be around someone's attitude, and you're going to notice that you're completely neutral in their presence. And so what was all that about? Why were you able to handle the exact same version of that person today, but not last week? And the why is in these boundaries that I'm going to talk about. Your boundaries is what allows you to support your energy. And the first boundary is with respect to your time. How much time are you interacting with people? Many people are going to notice that if they've been around someone all day, every day, they'll start to get a little tense around each other, and they can snap very easily unless they've thought ahead and they've allowed alone time as a way to reflect, recalibrate, and return to themselves so they can return back to this person with a clean, stable energy. And consider the act of going to work all day and having nothing left by the time you get home with your family, if you have one. So a key practice in this is transition time that you need from work to home. You need time to yourself before you can enter into interactions with more people, even if they're people that you love. And that time can be spent during an intentional car ride home, or once you get home, that you have this 20-minute of quiet time for yourself. Everyone knows when you get home, you need your 20-minute reset first. And if you're someone who works from home, well, then maybe you need to get out for a walk, give yourself some time to reset. Now, a bit more on time boundaries, because you may very well spend less time interacting with people on purpose. So not only do you need time in transitioning from one thing to the next, and the time that you need for that can vary. So you have to start to notice how much time it takes you to recover from these things. And it might take you longer than you expect, or longer than you're giving yourself time for initially. Because if you go back into that being in someone else's energy, then you haven't spent enough time to yourself. Don't underestimate how much time you're going to need to recalibrate. Like, if you're plugging in your phone, that's on low battery. How long does it take you to get to 50%? How long does it take to get to 100%? Because you might be unplugging it at 50% and carrying on, and then you find yourself depleted again very easily. Or you haven't allowed that battery to charge up fully to be in your whole energy. You're just in half of your energy, and you're still a little bit half in other people's. So what's going to drain your battery even more is theirs. So there just comes this very strict boundary of choosing quiet for the majority of the time. And not because you're avoiding connection, but so that you can become more connected to yourself, so that you can show up for those connections that mean the most to you. You value this connection with yourself. And because you value this connection with yourself and this time with yourself, you'll be way less likely to lose yourself in relationships with other people. The second boundary is related to energetic boundaries, the energy in other people that you've gotten caught up in, and how to set boundaries for that. Things like gossip, news, toxic conversations. Sometimes you might catch yourself immediately and turn it off, or let the person know, hey, I can't take this information in right now. I'm feeling really overwhelmed hearing about it. Some people in our life can be really good about asking first, hey, I have something that might be a little uncomfortable to share. Do you have space to hear it right now? And what that does is prepares us for what's about to come. So we can get into our energy, ground ourselves, and say, okay, I'm ready to listen. And at the same time, letting them know, hey, if it gets too much, I'll let you know. Okay. Because when someone is messy with their energy and they just step right in and they start oversharing all those traumatic details with you and you were not expecting it, that's when you get slimed. And then the possibility to be in their energy. So it's up to you to know that that's happened so that you can reflect it back and then work on your own recovery of grounding yourself so you can return back to your own energy in the present moment. I created a PDF that I share with my clients on energetic hygiene. So if you'd like some more information, you can find that in the Evolving Empath membership. These energetic boundaries are things that you do, part of your grounding techniques to bring you back into the present moment and into your energy. For more information on grounding and learning about energetic hygiene, I've got a lot of videos and guides that you'll find on the Evolving Empath membership. So all of this time and energy is equating to the relationships that you're investing in. Who's getting your time? Who's getting your energy? And so for that, you must define your relational boundaries. Who gets full energetic access to you and for how long? And there's some people that you're not going to allow full access to or any access to. So it's true, you're going to be giving very few people your energy. And you might want to take note of who you may have been giving too much access to. And just because they're family doesn't mean they get unlimited access to you all the time. And you're going to have to keep in mind certain ways to respond to people who are coming in to slime you in these relationships. Because it's one thing to have your own energetic boundaries in place, but you're also going to have to verbally respond to them and let them know, hey, I really appreciate our connection. I want to stay present with you, but I need to step back to ground myself before I can hear anymore. When people are unexpectedly bringing on this heavy information to you, it's important for you to be prepared to say to them, hey, can we talk about this later? I just want to be able to give it the energy it deserves. And right now, this is feeling pretty heavy. And these are the type of boundaries that need to be normalized. Because what happens when we say these things to certain people is, oh, you're just thinking about yourself and you're not here when I need you. Or you might hear people saying, never mind. If you can't handle it, I won't share my problems with you anymore. And the thing is, when we hear those kind of responses from people, well, part of us thinks there's something wrong with us that we can't, handle listening to these things, that we're being overly sensitive. But the truth is that those people are not used to hearing boundaries. And it's likely that they're not good at setting boundaries either. Clearly they're not because they're just coming and dumping things on you without checking in first. And yes, it might mean that you're going to lose some people in the process of that. And that is hard. And that's part of the process of owning your own authentic energy. Because feeling anxious in a relationship all the time isn't worth it. The last kind of boundary I'm going to talk about are personal boundaries. These are the boundaries that are similar to that 20-minute reset when you get home or asserting yourself when you hear information that's overwhelming. But personal boundaries are also all those little things that you put in place for yourself throughout the day whenever you need them. It requires you to be really tuned into yourself. So you know what it is you need to be doing on a regular basis, not just as a reaction to something or someone, but as a lifestyle, a non-negotiable. And when I work with people on boundaries, I let them know that you're going to go from one extreme to the other, not having any, to being very rigid with them, to then becoming them, becoming the boundary. And what that is all about is being embodied in your own truth. You probably don't need to talk about your boundaries at that point because you've become them. And so for me, how I become the boundary is I just know automatically the things that I have to do, those non-negotiables. I have to get outside. It doesn't matter the weather because I know that fresh air and being outside is what helps me to maintain my energy. Getting enough rest, moving my body, eating foods that are grounding and from this earth. So, what we're talking about here are practices that you do on the regular. So, you're not taken aback by people's energy. If you haven't been taking care of yourself and you haven't been setting personal boundaries, you're going to be more in the energy of other people. Versus when you've gotten really good at setting these boundaries, then you are in your own energy. That's what I mean. You become the boundary. There is a huge mindfulness element to this. And a personal boundary that I have is to live a mindful life, to be in the present moment on purpose, without judgment, as often as possible. Because when I'm in a difficult conversation, I can be in that conversation with the awareness of my energy and keep it separate from the other person right off the bat. I can do that right from the beginning versus not being in check, not being attuned to myself, and then not realizing until well after the conversation or at the end of the conversation what's happening. So there needs to be an understanding that you have with yourself as a personal boundary of, for example, I need more space than most to feel like myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you ever have a chance of maintaining a clear energetic space and being in your own energy, you have to know what it actually takes to do that. And for me, to be in my own energy requires me to be alone for most of the time. But living as a human also requires interactions with other humans. So set your boundaries for how those interactions are going to take place. Know your limits, know what your sensitivities are, and respect them so you can be at your best. As I mentioned before, the Evolving Empath online membership has many helpful videos, meditations, and guides, including my ebook, The 6 Steps to Letting Go of Other People's Emotions, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Empaths, and a guide on quick tips for energetic hygiene. You'll also be able to watch the Empath Toolkit. This is a 90-minute video that has no ads and goes even deeper into boundaries and must-have practices for highly sensitive people. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time.